Hello, and thank you all once again for tuning into my newest podcast, Real Talk About Life and Relationships, with me, Stephanie K, aka Sage the Coach. I am a multi-certified and master life coach. I'm also an author, a speaker, a teacher. I also have another business. I'm also a mother, daughter, lots of different hats. And so I've used all that experience and information that I've learned over the years, also with some training with my certifications. And I use it to bring a lot to my podcast and teach people about the things that are necessary in order to grow as people, in order to have healthy relationships. And so my podcast comes on every Thursday at 12 p.m., but I was not able to come on yesterday. I had a family emergency and I couldn't get to the show yesterday. So I'm doing it today because I didn't want to miss this topic, because I do think, well, all of my topics are really, really important. So I definitely didn't want to miss this one. And so I'm a day late, but I'm coming, and, take notes, get your pencil and paper out, because this is going to be some really important stuff that you need to know. But before that, you can watch my podcast on Facebook, YouTube. I sometimes post them on LinkedIn and Instagram. And so you can watch me there. And then you can also watch me via the Roku, Google Play Store, iStore, through the Entertainment Theater app. So if you download the Entertainment Theater app, you will find my show on there, probably starting the beginning of next year. So please follow, like, share, on my whichever platform you prefer. If you could follow me on there, that would be great. And then please share my information with anybody who you think might be in need of it or interested in it. And so I want to dive right into the topic that I have for today. So I think this is about my third or fourth show since I started. Very soon my promo is going to be a little bit different, because I'm still kind of showing the promo for the show coming up. Like, I'm going to start the show, but I'm going to change that promo here very soon. The intro to an official intro. But anyway, so since I've started, which I think November 14th was my show, I've been talking a lot about growth, because I think that this kind of lays the foundation for any other topic that I'm going to cover. And you have to understand the foundation of stuff first, and so that it can grow correctly, or so that you can grow correctly or build on top of something that's healthy, which is a lot of people's problems when it comes to relationships and their decisions in life and things like that. And a lot of times it kind of amazes me how people don't make the connection a lot of the times. And so that's why I'm here to help, to give people some insight and some direction, so that they can actually improve their well-being, mental health, spiritual health, emotional health. And then those things being healthy will naturally spill over into having healthier relationships, which is the second to third most important thing in your life, because life revolves around relationships, whether it's a parenting relationship, friends, boyfriend, spouse, best friends, things like that. And so relationships is a very big component of our lives. When people don't have relationships, or they stay out to themselves, they usually end up having some serious issues. And so relationships are very, very important. So I would say God first, you second, relationships third, and then you can kind of give your relationships a hierarchy between those that you feel like are important or not. But these are important, and a lot of people put other stuff way before, out of disorder, and it causes problems because if you're not healthy, you're not going to have healthy relationships. If you don't have some, I want to say, sense of spirituality, even if you don't believe in a specific religion, it tends to have negative effects on you. There's a lot of studies that are done that people who follow a religion, not a specific religion, but just have a understanding that there is a higher power. It definitely gives life perspective and is healthier and stuff like that. I know a lot of people that don't like religion, and I actually don't like religion either. So I do understand that the adverse reaction that a lot of people will have to what I'm saying. And so that's why I want to put it in the context of understanding that there is a higher power. It definitely gives your life direction. Gives you a sense of accountability. And for the most part, most religions don't tell you to do anything bad for the most part. So anyway, it just kind of encourages us to continue to be better people and think deeper and stuff like that, which I know is not the case for all people. So don't think that I'm endorsing that, but I don't want to go into this whole thing about religion because that could be a whole nother show by itself. So I'm just trying to say that when you have these things in order in your life, it does make for a more healthier you and healthier relationships. And so the last couple of weeks I talked about the importance of growth, how we grow, and then this week I want to talk about how our growth affects our relationships. So you can have a really good understanding of that. Before I dive into that, well, this is something that I always tell in my classes. So for those of you who don't know, I do teach classes about these things. If you're interested in seeing what type of classes I offer or signing up for any class, you can send me a comment on this post, or you can visit my website, which is at www.unveilingthespirit.com. At the bottom there, it says for a free session, but you can also go to that website to look up the courses and stuff that I have available, as well as my books. So I teach courses about this. And so in my courses, I'll put that back up really quickly so people can write it down if you need to. So in my courses, I always tell people, and just not even in my courses, I say this all the time: unhealthy people cannot have healthy relationships. It is not possible. A lot of people sometimes sincerely want to have healthy relationships, and they really put a lot of effort into it, and it just doesn't work. And then they get frustrated because they feel like something's wrong with people or something's wrong with them, and they don't want to be bothered anymore and stuff like that. But you cannot have a healthy, and I guess I will add to that, happy. You cannot have a healthy, happy relationship if you are not a healthy, happy person. Because whatever you bring to relationship is 50% you, 50% the other person. If what's inside of you is unhealthy, that is what you're going to bring to relationship. You cannot have stuff inside of you that's unhealthy and then you suddenly have healthy relationship. It does not work that way. So a lot of times I give the comparison of like people being plants. We're like plants. We grow. We need things to grow, stuff like that. I like to use that comparison a lot. And I've even heard it said that a lot of our internal workings under a microscope and stuff like that resemble plants and trees and stuff like that. So I really like to use that example because it really fits for the way that we work as human beings. And so we start off like small, and then we're giving things to help us grow. And I talked about last week the different ways in which we grow. So we grow spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and then physically to a certain point. But all those things in your body need things in order to grow. So just like a plant needs water, dirt, sunlight, stuff like that, your body, or those different components of yourself, need different things in order to grow. If it doesn't get those things, it will continue to attempt to grow, but it will grow in like warped, dysfunctional, unhealthy ways. And that's how you get unhealthy people. So for example, if you're young, in the process of you growing, and you're always talked down to, you're going to have a negative perception of yourself as you get older. So you've grown, but in a warped kind of unhealthy way. And then if you have a negative perception about yourself, you're going to bring that into your relationship. And so I'm going to get into that in more detail soon, but I just want to give you a basis for understanding where I'm coming from when I'm talking about unhealthy people cannot have healthy relationships. So it's not possible. Unhealthy, unhappy people cannot have healthy, happy relationships. So we have to work on ourselves, which a lot of people neglect or negate or deny and do all these other things in order to avoid doing that. But we need to work on ourselves in order to not only have healthy relationships, but make good, clear-headed choices in our lives. Because if you think something's wrong with you and you have a bad opinion about yourself, it's going to affect the decisions that you make. And so again, I'll go into some of that and I'll talk about a lot of this stuff as we go on, but I'm again just trying to lay the foundation. So 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 yeah, so one of the things about having healthy relationships boils down to, which I was just kind of mentioning, is how you see yourself. And how you see yourself comes from your upbringing. And so you know, people have these, some people think they are entitled and then they bring that into relationships and in their choices in life. Some people think that they're failures and then they, you know, bring that into that. And so the way that we see ourselves absolutely affects a lot of components in our life. So again, we have to work on these things when we realize that we have that issue, because a lot of times, especially if you're raised in a particular way, you can have this issue and not necessarily recognize it because everybody sees themselves from a biased perspective. And because your belief system creates your perception, it's difficult to change your perception when you don't know that there's a problem in your belief system. So you won't even see that there's a problem. So you'll see what you want to see, and everything is shaped by your perception. And that's actually the point of relationships, because they help us to see outside of ourselves. They help us to bring those characteristics and things about ourselves into a different perspective, because we can't fully see it on our own. So once you start seeing those things, it's important to start doing work on them. And I'll talk about a few reasons why a lot of times people don't end up doing that. And so anyway, when you have these perceptions, and then how you see yourself directly correlates to how you see other people. So if you think that you're a failure and you have negative thoughts about yourself, for some reason, people automatically make other people the opposite of that. So they think highly, too high sometimes of other people, like everybody's life is so great and theirs is so bad and they're so stupid and everybody else is so smart. And so again, there will be a direct correlation between how you see yourself and how you deal with other people. Again, a lot of this stuff comes from childhood, which I will talk about that in a later time too. And I also teach about that in my courses. And so just so you understand how all of this works. So when you have unhealthy ideas about yourself and other people and even the world, because that's how kind of spirituality plays into it, because I know some people who think that the whole entire world is corrupt and evil and, you know, stuff like that. And if you have that perception of the world, those you would tend to be a little bit more paranoid, more on guard. So you see how your beliefs directly affect how you see things and how you respond to things and how you make choices. So, but if you have that spirituality piece, even though you do see bad in the world, you're able to put into perspective and still kind of gravitate away from those more negative effects of having a wholly negative perspective about the world. So anyway, so when you have negative perspectives about the world, people, and yourself, or unrealistic expectations or perspectives, you're going to bring that into your relationships. Now, people, you can meet somebody and you won't be able to tell right away that they have all of these things, but they will eventually play out in the way that they respond, how they talk, the things they do, the choices they make. And so that's why it's important to kind of take your time getting to know people, because it's not going to reveal itself right away. A lot of people put their best foot forward, which they should do, rightfully so, when it comes to meeting somebody new, because they want the person to like them. And, you know, even when it comes to kids, you want your parents to be proud of you, stuff like that. But over time, this is what makes relationships very, very special and important, because over time, the more time you spend with the person, the more those masks are going to fall off. And so that's why some people even avoid relationships, because they don't want the mask to fall off and they don't want to be seen for who they really are. And so they kind of avoid relationships, get to a certain point, and then they sabotage them and walk away. And they come up with all different types of reasons of what happened and stuff like that. But the truth is that when you are in a relationship and you maintain regular contact and interact with a person, different sides of you are going to be revealed. It's going to come out. And so if you just take your time when it comes to getting to know somebody and stuff like that, you will eventually start seeing the signs. But it's up to you to have a healthy enough perspective to put those signs in perspective and understand what they mean, if they're important, if they're not important, how they might affect you and your relationship in the future. But you will bring those unhealthy things into a relationship, and it will eventually come out. I don't care how much you try to hold it in, it's not going to stay in, because that is just not how we're created. As spiritual beings, we are created to bring what is unseen to the seen. So to bring our spiritual makeup and reality into the physical world to be seen and used and stuff like that. So we are spiritual beings. Our bodies are physical, and our bodies is used to bring our spiritual being into fruition. Because now we can express ourselves, we can walk, we can talk, we can do all this stuff. And it's the same thing. So whatever belief system you have is unseen, but through your actions and your behaviors and how you relate to people, you make it seen. And so the way that you make it seen leads to two different outcomes. It's either going to help you grow or it's going to help you deteriorate. And that's for everybody. And so that's how we are made. So you can't hold your being inside and just keep it in check, so to speak, because that's just not how we're made. Eventually it's going to come out. So, and if you're able to keep it in check and show something that's not really inside of yourself, unfortunately you are a very fake and phony person, which a lot of times people can kind of sense fake and phony people and they right away. So anyway, so even that, your ingenuous stuff will still be seen. So, but anyway, so when you have those issues and kind of flawed belief systems, especially about yourself and other people, you will bring those into your relationship. And that is what people talk about when they say people bring baggage. So that'll be your baggage. In my opinion, everybody has baggage. Some people have less baggage than others, but everybody has baggage because there are always going to be some things that you don't see about yourself because your perspective is like, for example, I walk around all day. I interact with people. I don't see my face. I just do what I do and I go about my day. I might catch my reflection in the mirror every once in a while or when I'm getting ready and stuff like that. But I would say the majority of the day, I don't see my face at all. And so, but other people can see my face. And so those things will eventually reveal themselves. And so you have your baggage and you think that you're fine and you're good, but a relationship. And so this is important. This is where you should take notes. A relationship is to help you see yourself so you can grow. It's not for, and I don't want to say it's not for love and all that type of stuff, even though I was about to say that, but that is not the main thing that it's for. And so we sometimes seek after relationships for the wrong reason, because a lot of times we have our issues and our baggage and we seek our relationships out of those because we feel like, for example, if we feel like we're worthless, we feel like, oh, if we can just find somebody that thinks we're worthy, then that will help to fix what is inside of us. So again, what is going on inside of you is coming out in your decisions. So you feel like, oh, if I could just find somebody to think that I'm special or whatever, then it will solve this problem of unworthiness in myself. But that's not how it works. You will show that you feel unworthy by the way that you behave in a relationship. If the way that you behave in a relationship is dysfunctional, it's going to cause problems. And then the partner will say, or your parent will say, or your friends will say, or your coworkers will say, you kind of blah, 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 blah. You do this, you do that. Now, it takes time for some people, and the closer the relationship, the more you can expect people to be honest, and the more people will more quickly tell you that there's an issue. But if there's a distant relationship and you don't deal with those people on a regular basis and y'all don't have kind of some strong intimacy or connection, they're going to be much more reluctant to point out your flaws because people know that they don't like it when their flaws are pointed out. So they feel uncomfortable pointing out other people's flaws. And so, but the closer you are, the more tension is going to bring, the more likelihood that the person is going to say, hey, there is an issue, sometimes because, and they're not going to say, well, you seem like you feel unworthy and because you feel that way, they're not going to know the specifics. They might say something like, you put a lot of pressure on me to make you feel better when you get upset, stuff like that. Or you get really upset when you think that you say you try to complete a task and you don't get it right. You get really upset and you stay upset for a very, very long time. And it makes me uncomfortable. They'll say stuff like that. Now, when they do that, it is up to you to take what they're saying seriously or not. A lot of people get defensive. Most of the time, people start finger pointing and saying, no, I'm like this because of you and stuff like that. And honestly, sometimes people just don't love the other person enough to take what they say seriously, because one thing that happens in relationships when it comes to friction is that if it bothers the person that you love, you will kind of want to change for them because you don't want to hurt them. Now, if you're in a relationship and you find out that you're hurting somebody and then you don't care that you're hurting that person, it's a really big sign that you don't actually love that person. And so your love in that relationship. So like I was saying, relationships are to help us grow. This is what they're for. And if they grow, and in the process of them growing is when we get those things that we're actually looking for in relationships, which is love, companionship, partnership, all the different things that people want relationships for that are healthy. So it is when we grow in our relationships that we will get those things, but that's not really what relationships are for on the front end. They are to help you grow. And when you grow, you get those other things. If you don't grow, you don't get those things. And so a lot of times relationships will fall apart and end because they're not growing, because that's the opposite of growth. And so if you don't grow, then you will not get those things that you initially got into the relationship for. So relationships, again, help you see yourself. And if you love somebody, you will listen to them when they are telling you that they see things in you. One of other things that I notice is a big barrier when it comes to people pointing out other people's problems within relationships is that you feel like the other person has issues too. So why are they pointing out your stuff when they have stuff? Well, that's not the point, because not only should they point out your stuff, you should be pointing out their stuff. And so I think it says in the Bible that it's shameful to talk about what people do in secret. So it's like, they have problems and you don't tell them. You just tell other people and you whisper to them, but you never go to them. That is not love. So when you see somebody has an issue, you tell them so that they can overcome it. If you don't tell them, that means you don't care if they grow or not, which is actually the opposite of love, because we are beings that are supposed to grow. And so if you're denying somebody the sun or the dirt or the stuff that plants need, sun, dirt, water, that they need to grow, that's not love. So, and people have a lot of dysfunctional ideas about love, and I want to do a show explaining what love actually is, and I'll do that later. But I hope you understand for the most part what I'm saying. So, so people will point out your stuff, and if you love them enough, and you don't want to hurt them, and you're not gonna say, well, you have flaws too, then that will encourage you to now take a look inside of yourself and figure out where your issue is coming from, why is it there, and how to overcome it. When you do that, sometimes those things can be very quick. Sometimes it can take years. It just depends on you, really, and how ready you are to deal with stuff. But once you do, you will grow as a person. Your perspective will grow, your understanding will grow, your love will grow, like things in you will grow, and you will continue to be on the track of becoming a healthier person. Now, that is what relationships are for. Relationships are to help us grow, because we can't see ourselves inside of ourselves. We need to see ourselves from outside of ourselves. And so a lot of people, and this even happens in parenting, and it's from both sides, because a lot of times you get relationships in parenting relationships, where the parent is just really adamant about directing the child, teaching the child, disciplining the child. But parenting also teaches you about yourself. So you may see somebody who you may not think you are strict, for lack of a better word, but all of a sudden when you become a parent, you notice that the way that you are, and it's causing distress to your child, and you guys are having a bunch of friction, and you keep yelling and blah 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 blah. That's up to you to not use your position as the parent, higher person, and make it seem like, well, they should supposed to listen to you, do what you're saying, blah, 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 blah. No, that's an indicator that there is something there that you need to look at. So when your parenting is not necessarily giving you the results that you would like, and it's not going to be perfect, but when it's way off track, this usually means there's some adjustment you need to make in yourself. Now, if there is some adjustment you need to make in yourself, it typically comes from how you were raised and what you think and stuff like that. If you think you're a failure and you have a kid and you're going to say in your mind subconsciously, I don't want them to be a failure like me, you might put a lot of pressure on them to succeed, and it stresses them out because they want to make you proud, and it's very difficult for them and they're scared. And now you have this very weird relationship with your child. But again, it's up to you to look at yourself and learn from that relationship what areas you need to change in. That's what relationships are for. So it even happens in parenting. Most of the time I put these things in the context of romantic relationships, but it is for all relationships. And the thing about all relationships is that friction is going to come. If you have a relationship where there is no friction and you guys never argue and the person never tells you certain things about yourself that they don't like, that is not a real relationship. It's a fake relationship, and something is seriously wrong, and you guys either not going to last very long, or you can be together for a very long time and don't really grow in any real capacity. And so yeah, it's very, very important to have that friction in a relationship so that you can grow from it. And so a lot of times we want to avoid the friction. We want to be happy, we want to make the other person happy, but that is not what relationships are for, especially I would say in our fallen state, because I think relationships could have been like that before Adam and Eve sinned, but they did. And then this is what we have when it comes to relationships. So relationships were always meant to help us grow. But since the fall, and since we're in a sinful state now, they still serve that same purpose. It's just more difficult now. It's more tension now. It's more friction now in order to grow than it used to be. So when you have that friction, the way you respond to that friction and the way the relationship grows from that friction is what really determines if you have a healthy relationship or not. A lot of people will say, oh, I have a healthy relationship and, this and this and that. But how does your relationship respond to friction? That is one of the ways that you will know if your relationship is healthy or not. Now, if you guys have friction and you don't grow from that friction, and people just go in their own corners and you guys don't talk to each other, nobody changes, you don't come back to that loving state of connection after an issue with some changes made to yourself, it's a key sign that you don't have a healthy relationship or you are not a healthy person. So how does your relationship respond to friction? That is one way you will know if you have a healthy relationship or not. I'm trying to figure out where I was at. So if you, so I would say relationships help us grow. That's what they're for. When you're unhealthy, you typically bring a lot of stress and stuff to your relationships. It's important for the other person to point it out. And it's important for you to point out what you see in other people so that they can grow as well. This is where a lot of relationships fall apart, because when it comes to people pointing out other people's stuff, people typically just point the fingers at other people and say, is you. Well, you do this and you do this and you do that, when really it's an opportunity for you to take a look at yourself. Now, that does not mean everything that people say about you is true. So, but it's up to you to do that inner work to figure out if there's some merit to what they're saying. And you have to be genuine about it, because our natural inclination is going to be to deny and act like we're fine, that it's the other person, because it feels bad. It really feels bad. But everything that feels bad is not bad. So you have to say, okay, I have heard this. She said this. Let me go back, do some self-reflection and figure out if there is an issue that I need to pay more attention to. And so that will look different in different ways. And if you need some pointers about how to do that, or, stuff like that, you can reach out and I can kind of explain it, or you can take one of my courses, which I go into more detail about it. That's what you have to do. Now, you may come to the conclusion that, okay, what they said did not have merit, but you still need to address whatever the issue is, that is whatever the problem is that's causing the issue in the relationship, because it's something. It's not there for no reason. It might be the other person. And even if it is, you need to go to them in a respectful, loving way and point out their stuff. And so it's not easy. People usually get very, very lost in this process. That's why a lot of times we need help from like relationship coach, other people in our older people in our families, our friends. Very easy to go to them and say, hey, what do you think about this? We do that because we're trying to get a perspective outside of ourselves. And so that's important, and you should be doing that. But just make sure you go to the right people, because I do see some people that try to get advice from people they shouldn't be trying to get advice from. So anyway, so this is usually where relationships end up falling apart. If you guys can't realize equally the contribution that you're making to the problem, figure out where that's coming from, work on it, fix it, come back to the relationship with a some improvements. And yeah, because relationships are not for filling your voids and stuff like that. I mean, they can, especially if it's done in a healthy way, but it's to help you grow. And so a lot of people come with all this baggage and they put it on the other person, which causes stress and all this type of stuff, and then causes problems in relationship. But if you can point out, you know what, I think I do that. I feel like this, I feel like that. Oh, that doesn't sound right. Then you can grow from it. And then you guys can actually get to the type of relationship that you're wanting or attempting to have. So I'm just looking at my notes real quick to make sure I'm not forgetting anything, because I should be wrapping up soon. But yeah, so when you don't grow from your relationship, the relationship becomes more dysfunctional, and you will either the relationship will deteriorate, or you will just continue to stay in a dysfunctional relationship, which is also going to be doing more damage to you instead of helping you grow. So when we grow, our relationships can grow. If we don't take care of ourselves and grow and be honest with ourselves and examine ourselves, because even me talking about when you have a problem, you have to go back and think about it and stuff like that. You should know how to do that with yourself before you get in, especially a romantic relationship. Your parental relationships, your friendships, stuff like that, they should start teaching you some of these things so that you know how to deal with yourself. And then when you get in a romantic relationship, you know how to say, okay, there's a problem here. Let me deal with myself first, and then you come back to deal with the problem. So anyway, that's really about it for my podcast today. I just really wanted to give you guys some pointers, and I could probably do 3, 4, 5 shows about this. I probably will do some more, but I just want to give you guys some ideas about how our growth affects our relationship. So when you grow as a person, your relationship will grow. If you don't grow, your relationship is not going to grow. Now, there is situations where you can grow, and because the other person refuses to grow, they can contribute to the relationship deteriorating, which is actually the case in my own marriage that ended last year. Because, you can't force somebody to grow. You can encourage them to grow. You can, draw boundaries about their lack of growth, but you can't push anybody to grow. And if they don't grow, even though you are, it still will lead to the end of the relationship, unfortunately, because relationships are not just about one person. It does not matter how much work you do, how much you change, how much you sacrifice. If it's not, the person is not equally contributing to the relationship, it's not going to last. And if it does last, it's very dysfunctional, and I'm certain you're not happy. So anyway, so 2 things that I want you to keep in mind as I wrap this up is, number 1, do you grow from encounters in your relationships? Like, whether it's, again, parental relationships, friendships, romantic relationships, marriages, your relationship with your bosses. And what I mean by grow is, do you learn something from those relationships that you can use to have a deal with things in a better way, to see yourself and then work on anything about yourself so you can deal with it in a better way, or deal with life in a better way, or deal with other people in a better way. So you always want to be learning from your experiences. And so that's what the question is basically revolves around. Do you grow from those encounters? Do you learn from those encounters, and parts of you end up growing because of that? Another thing is, how does your relationship respond to friction? So that will give you a really good idea if your relationship is healthy or not, and if some work needs to be done. If you guys have friction, and then people start throwing stuff and insulting people and stuff, that's a very key sign that you guys do not have a healthy relationship. And if you really love that person and you guys want to try to stay together, you need to work on that, and you need to fix that so that you guys can continue to grow together and get to the place where you get the love and companionship and all that goody good stuff when it comes to relationships in the first place. So yeah, so that's about it. Again, you can visit my website at www.unveilingthespirit.com for more about my courses. Also for a free session, if there's anything that I talked about in here that you want more insight on, or you're listening and you're like, you know what, that's me. I need some help to deal with this, and you're in a place to deal with it. You can go ahead and look on my website and about how to get a free session, and then also my courses as well. Please also be sure to follow, like, invite, share people to my page. I would really, really appreciate it because I'm putting this information out there because I want to help people grow. Lack of growth is probably the number one problem in this entire world that we deal with. Like, all the stuff that we deal with comes from somebody not growing, like, honestly. So it's serious. You know, you can say it in a very light way, but when it gets to the serious stuff of, for example, people murdering other people, they didn't grow. And it's, I mean, that's a simplified version of it, but of course it breaks off into all these much more serious things. So, but anyway, that's about it for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. And again, sorry for being late for the show for this week. And I will put out the topic for the new show on Monday. So you guys have a great weekend. Thank you so much. Please comment with any questions that you have. Either comment on here or visit me on my website and email me. So thank you so much. Have a good day. Good weekend. All right. Bye.